The purpose of the good procurement is always to ensure cost-effective purchase. Of course, we're always searching to get something for a better price, like in the life, like with the example with the shoes, and like if even we are buying, laptop for ourselves. So the unfortunate, very often situation that is happening, because not to discuss why, doesn't matter what was the plan. Very often CSOs actually making mistakes saying, okay, we have 500 euros for laptop, let's buy a laptop for 500 euros. But the point of the cost effectiveness is to see whether we can get something for a cheaper price in order to actually save the money. That is, among others, a good management from the perspective of the donors, because you are not, this is like with the kids and their pocket money. If you have pocket money for 10 days, it's not the point that you will say to kid, please don't spend everything in 2 days. Try find a way how you can have that money longer and for more things that you like. That's how we are actually teaching them, isn't it? Yeah. So what actually this cost-effective purchase includes? Includes that we are transparent, that we ensure fair competition, meaning that have conditions for all of those that we are inviting to participate in this process equal. And this is always a question whether it was fair competition or you helped to somebody, like in the example of the cars, and then, designing such specifications that only one type of the car can actually be considered. That we are, of course, avoiding conflict of interest. I can share with you, really, in North Macedonia, the contracting authorities are very detailed and they are really checking the possible connections. And this is disadvantage, let's say, of a small country, you see, because you can easily check, number of the suppliers and connections and so on and so on. And of course, good quality of the tender documentation, especially tender specifications, requirements from tenderers like suppliers, providers of services, and contractual obligations. One thing it was mentioned by Vele, it was a requirement of, for example, 10 years of the warranty period, something like that. You can even put that in your specification. Of course, you need to ensure, actually check what is possible, whether this is actually realistic concerning the situation on the market, whether it's realistic to ask for 10 years or actually some shorter period of time. But it can be also your condition. In summary, these are some suggested main steps, but however, some details may vary, of course, from the different donor requests and from the different sizes of the procurement. So if you are buying something for a few hundred euros, this should be, of course, more, let's say, simple procedure than if you are buying something for 15,000 euros or for 50,000 euros. Anyhow, when we are talking about the main steps, what is actually needed always is this market research. So if you leave this training saying, every time I will conduct market research, I will have on my Andrea and her constant repeating on the market research. Very often, even donors, especially in EU-funded projects, in control of the documentation, they ask you, did you conduct market research and do you have a documentation for that? Sometimes exactly this market research can actually help you for justifying why you actually made particular tender maybe different comparing to something that you were planning in your proposal. Because in a market research, you realize that something that you want to buy, for example, is much more expensive. And then even before publishing the tender, you have to make some budget revision. Then, of course, based on that, we should choose correct procurement procedure. And I will explain this soon. Procurement procedures mainly relates with those amounts, with those limits. So there are limits for when you are buying something, when you can actually conduct some very simple procedure, and there are limits when you can even organize like international tender depending on the amounts for that particular purchase. Then we are preparing something that is called tender dossier. This is actually the documentation that we have, for example, in the Prague, we have documents which we are adopting to what we need, and of course the procedure. What it means, that no matter what, we have some format of the document. Again, we have to actually define what we are buying. And that's why it was important for me that we have this exercise at the beginning and that we have such a discussion. Prague document or any other guiding document or formats cannot define the subject of our purchase. These are just practically checklists, reminders for us what we need to have, like invitation letter, description of the service, like the terms of references, and other supporting documents. Then we are publishing a so-called procurement notice, or actually sending invitation letter to those that we want to send us offer. So it's a simple actually letter in which we are inviting them and saying, we are inviting you to submit offer, and here is another document which is like terms of reference or specifications, conditions, etc. Depending again on the size of our purchase, we will actually form sort of some kind of the evaluation committee, which will actually sit together once we receive offers, open them together, and then evaluate them according to our specifications. Of course, it might happen that for something that is very simple purchase, we will not set up every time evaluation committee, but is expected that we have sort of like some kind of the control within the organization, meaning that maybe the project assistant will review and make some analysis, and then the project manager will actually make a final, decision based on this and so on, or even the director of the organization will approve that decision and such a stuff. It always depends on the amount of money. You will see on the next slide or two. Once we made the decision, we are actually, of course, making a contract with this tenderer that we actually selected. We discuss now lots of when we are buying some equipment which was much easier, or when we are having some works. When we are having services, the situation is a bit more sophisticated, let's say like that, because in that case, we also have some other criteria. It's not only the price. So we are usually then interested for the experience of the company, for the experience of the particular experts that will be providing services, for their competencies, education, and so on. And we are actually interested for the content of their methodology, how they will approach to implementation of this, for example, research, training, evaluation, and so on. And in addition to this, we have price. So this is different comparing to equipment and furniture, where we need to have offers for the same items. Here, we will then evaluate whether someone has more experience, whether some offer actually it's better because they, for example, an offer for the training, they also provided detailed presentation of the program or methodology and so on. And of course, we will, in addition to this, we will have price again as a criteria. In case of the service contracts, it can actually happen that even those that were having very good, for example, these CVs and very good proposal are too much expensive comparing with some others. So it might happen that someone who is actually less expensive and even all other details are lower will actually got the job. So this is this difference comparing to when we are buying actually supply. However, preparation of those procurement process requires that we define criteria, and that is not actually easy. That is not easy job to do. I'm having also one example from North Macedonia, where one organization awarded a contract for services to the offer that was not actually the best value for money. They actually signed the contract for the one that had a good offer, but were also much more expensive the others. And then on my question why they didn't actually contract the one that was supposed, according to the evaluation criteria, to get the contract, they said, but well, this guy, well, it's fine, but he was too cheap. But that is the catch. You can't have a criteria, it is too cheap. So if you evaluated that this offer actually fulfills all criteria and just actually offered the much lower price comparing to others, this cannot be a problem. This should be actually advantage, And for example, it was, of course, problem for them. At the end of the process, we have to inform all those that actually submitted offers on the results. So very often I notice this is not happening. So I am invited to submit an offer, or for example, organizations simply published a tender on their website. I submit an offer, and after that, I do not receive any information on the results. And this is not good, because next time I will simply, if they even contact me, I'm immediately deleting messages from such organizations, because I immediately think that they are actually just using me as excuse to receive offers. So the transparent actually process would look like that each company or each person that participated in the process receives at the end of the process information: who is the winner, what was who is the winner, and what is your position, for example, in terms of the evaluation criteria and final results comparing to them. For example, 7 offers were received. Your offer was comparing to that list on the 6th place. And here are how many, for example, points received the offer that is winning offer. And here are the results, how many points you received. And of course, people sometimes complain. That also depends whether you want to, depending on the procedures, whether complaints are affecting on the procurement process and making a contracts with the winner, or you have to wait for that period, and so on. But that is something that is transparent. Then you see, okay, guys, we were too expensive, or it seems they actually found better experts, for example. This is really very much important. One more thing is that you can actually provide open the space during the process for tenderers to ask you questions, for example, by email. And it can be like, you know, like, I don't know, until certain date, they can, for example, send any question that they have concerning this procurement process, something it's unclear to them, etc., etc. What is transparent in this approach is that when you receive question from someone, you are actually informing all others, not saying Andrea asked this question or this company asked this question. You are actually sending at the same time information to all in the process, like, we received this question, here is the answer on this question. Or you will maybe, you know, collecting questions until certain date, and then you will make a list of questions and answers. But the point is that always all data in the process, or all data invited or expressed interest, whatever, they are treated equally, and responding on the questions at the same time to all of them is, for example, fulfilling of that principle. So Prague was mentioned several times, and this is now information because some of you maybe never heard, some of you already researched the Prague, and so on. What actually have to, this is a screenshot of the cover page of the Prague, because now they request that you confirm that you are not a robot, and it is such a, at least for me, yesterday I had to click several times to finally get some, you know, the input that I can actually type, because it was unclear for me. So I didn't want to now risk that we have this situation. But what we have here, several information for you to consider. First of all, Prague is a practical guide which is made for European Commission and to support process of making different kind of the tender processes that European Commission and their institutions and bodies are implementing. And these are, you can see here on the left side of the presentation: service contracts, supply, works, and grants. all institutions that are working on behalf of the European Commission, like some ministries which are acting as contracting authorities and other institutions, they also have to follow this document. All that are applying, for example, now for the IPA funds in North Macedonia, they also have to follow these rules because they are part of the process. However, this is, as Dima or someone said, this is a large document, and you actually have to know what are you searching for. So if you want, you can read about the introduction and basic rules. But if you are interested for particular type of the service contracts, you just click on service contracts and then on the, for example, simplified procedure. You are not now searching, everything. That's the point. Here you have the sections, and you have also annexes, documents to download. The point is, with the documents, and you will see when you open them, you have different options what to use, meaning that they often say, if this is not applicable for you, meaning for your project, for your procurement, then you are deleting it. That means no matter what you have a form, again, you have to adopt it to the type of the procurement process that you are conducting. And one more thing, it is this date. You see, current available version of the Prague document is from 1st of August of 2020. Prague usually is updated like once, twice per year. And every time when we want to use Prague for something, first of all, we have to check according to which version of the Prague is made our grant contract. And that is always written on all those documents. So if our, let's say, grant contract is made according to the version of the, I don't know, August 2019, then we are searching from previous versions of Prague. Usually in relation to changes that are happening concerning the grants and procurement process that we apply, there are not such differences. And usually some short info, what is new in the new version of the Prague is published, so you can easily find that information. So if you are implementing today some EU-funded grant, you have to actually check whether it is according to the current version of the Prague or maybe some previous version, because that actually depends not on the time when you sign the grant contract, but on the time when actual tender for grants was published. That means that some rules might be different comparing to the Prague version to the version of the Prague document that is valid today. Just give me a sign that you understand this. Okay. Because usually people are confused about it, and they very often make, for example, of course, panic that like now rules are changed. Yes, but you're always working according to the version that was valid at the time when the tender for the grant scheme was published. And in relation to that, you are following that rules. This is everything that I was sending to you, saying to you now. And as I said previously, Prague does not provide answers on all questions. This is just a framework. It provides lots of instructions, lots of format to be used, but as you can see, in practice, there are lots of things upon us that we have to define. Like, I can provide you with the format of the, for example, some simple monitoring tool, but you will always have to sit down and define some of your criteria concerning activities, target groups, proof documents, and so on. Here are those procedures that we were mentioning several times, and these are procedures in relation to Prague, meaning to EU projects. Since I don't have neither knowledge, neither capacity to explore, neither we have actually very little time to finish this story about the procurement. How this actually look like, and I will now focusing on what, from my experience with EU projects, I think it is the most important for you to know. Prague defines different, let's say, the budget limits in relation which procedure you have to follow. So for either it's a service or supply or works, when actually you are buying something up to 2,500 euros, practically, that means you can immediately like go and buy from the shelf or from the store. Like you just go and buy and you have like invoice. However, this is too much simplified explanation for it and cause lots of misunderstanding in practice. This actually means that you can actually go and buy something in the store, but you actually need to have some, because since you're not going to buy just, one pen, you always need to actually define again what are you buying, what you research, what are the prices, and so on and so on and so on. And even for services, for example, you are contacting someone to actually just run one training, and maybe the total amount of it will be 300 euros, but actually you need to define what you are buying. And again, if you contact me and saying, listen, can you implement to us training on proposal development, I will say, okay, please send this to me in written. And again, that means that no matter what, you need to have some sort of the communication before, research of the prices, etc., etc. Or some offers, even for example, we want to just buy some simple refreshment for a few hundred of euros. We need to have at least offer according to which we will actually accept that we want to buy that. Why I'm saying this? Because this is the very often we have these purchases up to that limit. The second limit that CSOs mainly have are purchases up to 20,000 euros. In that case, we are applying a single tender procedure. The single tender procedure means that we need to ensure one offer that is acceptable for us. However, it's to ensure one offer that is acceptable for us. In order to assure at least one acceptable offer, we need to contact more than one service provider. However, if we are sure that the one will certainly provide us a good offer, we can ask only one. Whether we will be challenged why we didn't ask for more, we will. And then it is up to us how we will justify this. Whether we will say, well, in the market research process, we collected enough information, and so on. Anyhow, the transparent approach would be to contact at least more than one service providers to receive one good quality offer. Very often people are saying, that's why I was with Žarko having discussion about what is the actual rule, saying, well, we need to get free offers. No, for example, for the single tender, you need to have one offer that is acceptable. But definitely what is suggested, to contact at least 3 service works or supply providers. You know, that is difference comparing to other now the procedures. You can see when you have above the 20,000 euros or above 100,000 euros or above 300,000 or even 5 million when we talk about works, when then the rules of the game are actually, of course, requesting more and more. In this orange part, you definitely need to have now at least 3 offers and then actually evaluate them. And even what you can do with the best price, you still have a room, according to the rules, to negotiate for the better price. Briefly, local open procedure means that you need to publish the tender. So in those, let's say, the first, this blue and orange procedures, you can directly approach to the possible providers of the services or suppliers. Local open procedure, you need to publish the tender as such, and then all interested can apply. In the last one, the purple one, international tender, that means that tender should be published internationally. I'm now not going in all other details because we don't have time for it. And for me, it was important that you understand this level of the most common procedures that civil society organizations are actually applying. This is actually repeating what was said, so you have also as a reminder, and here is actually a reminder on some deadlines, meaning for which procedure you need to actually, how to say, ensure some proper timing from them to actually to respond and so on. These are just suggestions from some usual successful practice. Of course, you can make them shorter or longer on so on, except if you have a procedure according to the some, you know, like contract documentation, or in case like in Prague, where it is clearly said for how long the tender, let's say, should be open. So what is usually happening? Many things that I actually already said. Yesterday, someone asked Anna, or I don't know, I'm sorry for that I forgot the name, if it's not Anna, whether the tender documentation and tenders have to be in English. For everything that is up to international tenders, there is no logic that the tenders are in English. And very often mistake that is happening at the level of the EU projects, that someone is saying, now this everything has to be in English. You applied in English and you will be reporting in English, but you awarded the grant to operate in your country and local community where English is not official language. And in order to be successful, especially in tendering process, you need to operate in the local language. However, that means that you might, maybe if you want to actually use the PRAC documentation, you have to translate it. In practice, I've seen different examples. Some people were sticking to English, some were completely translating, some were, because of, for example, their project partners, which were from some another country, having everything in bilingual in 2 languages. It actually, it really depends, but in overall, actually, I never seen this when we talk about projects at the local level in one country, that documentation has to be in English, because it's very hard to expect. Maybe for some services, yes, but for the works, you can't expect to receive offers in English. If we talk about, of course, these simple procedures, not international tenders. Again, okay, not conducting market research, making like very general specifications, and then, you know, receiving different offers, meaning receiving offers with different solutions, and then you cannot make a decision. Because if you just say, for example, the office chair, you know, I sit on the IKEA office chair of 50 euros, and my son has his gaming office chair of 150 euros. So it's actually a huge difference when we just say an office chair. So we need to define that. Then very often in our focus, what we need to, you know, purchase and so on, we forget on some other things, and that is especially in relation with when we are buying some equipment. Like Vele was saying, his group, 10 years of warranty. That is something that we might require for some equipment especially, and including some which are called like after sales services, that they can confirm to us that, for example, if we will need something to repair, that there is a service. If we will need to buy some new parts for the equipment, that is, you know, they still can provide in some period of time, or some annual check, and so on and so on. These are the details that we should consider to put in our tender, depending on what, of course, we are buying. That is usually not included. Why is that important? That reminded me on one very important thing that I wanted to mention even the first day, and then I forgot. When you are renovating something and when you are equipping something, then you always have following questions. You always face following questions, and that is, who is the owner of the space that you are renovating? And whether you have such a contract, agreement, whatsoever, written official document, that certain period of time after project ends, this space will be used for the purposes for which was renovated and was equipped. Another question, and you always ask this as a part of the sustainability, is how you will ensure maintenance of that renovated premises and of the equipment that is purchased. So how we can ensure that, for example, a year after project completed, this is still in operation. I mentioned this issue of making contracts equal to amounts stated in the budget. It is happening really a lot, and then it's a cause for lots of the questioning, justifying, and so on. Yeah, and this expectation that it is enough to follow Prague documentation. It is not enough, because we, no matter what, whether we are using the Prague or some other formats, depending, of course, on the donor and the requests. Again, our part of the work is always to define clearly subject of purchase and criteria according to which we are making decision with whom we will actually make a contract. A few more things. Please consider is that this that I was mentioning with the example of purchase of the car, meaning making specifications too narrow and in favor of one product or a company. Then if you have some serious construction works, very often such works need a supervision. It's like a service of some expert that is actually checking whether the works are going well and so on. So that's why we need to have this market research, because then the easiest we learn what is actually what is needed. For example, I can share with you now situation that we have in Zagreb because of the earthquake. For example, my building, we need to repair roof. And of course, we simply thought, okay, now we will just call the construction company to repair the roof, what is damaged, and so on and so on. But then the city authority said, no, first of all, you need to have expert who will actually give an overview of what is the condition of your building. So even whether something can be repaired or simply you can't live anymore in that building. Then when the construction expert finished that actually project and said, okay, everything is fine, you just need to repair your roof. Then another task that is happening is actually creation of the construction project by that expert, which even includes the budget proposal for the costs. Based on that, now actually we are requesting from construction companies their offers. They are receiving that document and even with the prices. And now we are actually evaluating who is offering, of course, the lower price according to what actually was proposed by the expert. So some of them are proposing the same price. Some of them, of course, proposing the lower price. No one until now proposed the higher. That expert will be also hired by us separately as a supervisor of those works that will actually happen. And he will actually make a sort of the quality check at the end and sign that, construction works completed. Okay. So I talked a lot. In my plan, I thought that maybe we will be having even time for one more exercise, but we definitely don't have, because we just have 40 more minutes for the whole training. But it was very valuable, everything that we discussed today. What is this now that actually I'm sharing with you? It is description from one terms of reference for services. They were searching for expert for evaluation, and these are their criteria. I just actually cut it down, part of them. And these are criteria from another terms of references for the same type of the job. So what do you think briefly? Which are more clear and easier to follow and easier to evaluate? This one?
Second one.
Yes, the second one, exactly. You know, when I said how you will, you know, evaluate all of this from my CV and my, you know, and my proposal and so on, you know. And there are so many aspects that you simply, like, I don't know, their evaluation criteria lists for how many days they can spend on just evaluating, for example, one CV or offer. The second one, exactly, it's very clear and has this criteria that you can easily measure.